The Great Intimidation Failure, the arrival of supreme authority. The Carvothian Empire had conquered 473 worlds across 12 galaxies. Supreme Commander Zalthor had personally overseen 62 of those conquests. He knew the pattern well. Arrive with overwhelming force, broadcast the message of inevitable submission, watch the primitive species collapse into fear and acceptance. It had worked every single time. Earth would be no different. The massive dreadnought descended through Earth's atmosphere, its shadow covering half of Geneva, Switzerland. The ship was 3 miles long, built from dark crystalline metal that seemed to absorb light itself. Weapon ports glowed with contained energy along its hull. 20 smaller warships surrounded it in perfect formation. This was the Carvothian way: beauty, power, and absolute dominance. Zalthor stood in the transport beam as it lowered him and his elite guard to the surface. He was an impressive sight even by galactic standards. 9 feet tall with midnight blue skin marked with silver patterns that indicated his rank. His 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows allowed him to see in multiple spectrums. 4 arms ended in clawed hands that had signed 473 surrender documents. His ceremonial armor was forged from the core of a collapsed star and hummed with defensive shields. The landing site had been chosen carefully. The open plaza in front of the United Nations headquarters. Maximum visibility, maximum witnesses, maximum psychological impact. As his feet touched the ground, Zalthor activated his presence field. It was a biotechnological enhancement that projected an aura of primal dread, activating the fear centers in most carbon-based brains. Lesser species often fainted immediately. The plaza was filled with humans. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They stood behind barriers, cameras pointed at him. Zalthor expected screaming, running, chaos. Instead, he heard something he had never encountered before at a first contact. Applause. A human male in a dark suit walked forward, hand extended. Zalthor recognized this gesture from the cultural database. A greeting. The man was smiling. Actually smiling. Supreme Commander Zalthor, welcome to Earth. I'm Secretary General Okonkwo. We've been expecting you since you entered our solar system 3 days ago. We have a meeting room prepared inside. I hope your journey was pleasant. Zalthor's presence field was operating at full power. This human should be trembling on the ground. Instead, he was making small talk about journeys. The commander's 4 hands clenched into fists. I am Zalthor, Supreme Commander of the Carvothian Imperial Fleet, voice of the Eternal Throne, conqueror of the Southern Spiral, bearer of— That's wonderful, Okonkwo interrupted gently. We printed your titles on the name tags for the conference table. Yours had to be in a smaller font to fit everything. Shall we go inside? We have refreshments prepared. The conference room confusion. The conference room was painfully ordinary. A long wooden table, comfortable chairs, pitchers of water, and plates of small sandwiches. Zalthor had expected a throne room, or at least a war room. This looked like somewhere humans discussed budget allocations. 20 humans sat around the table, all watching him with interest. Not fear, interest. Like he was a curiosity rather than an existential threat. Zalthor's upper left eye twitched slightly. Let us begin, he announced, his voice amplified to shake the walls. Your world has been selected for incorporation into the Carvothian Empire. You will surrender all military forces, all governing systems, and all resources. You will swear loyalty to the Eternal Throne. Resistance is futile. Compliance is not optional. You have 1 planetary rotation to accept these terms. He slammed one of his 4 hands on the table for emphasis. The sound echoed impressively. Then silence. Zalthor waited for the panic, the pleading, the desperate negotiations. A woman in military uniform raised her hand. Yes, Zalthor said, confused by the gesture. General Martinez, United States Space Force. Quick question about your fleet composition. We counted 1 dreadnought, 20 cruisers, and approximately 40 support vessels. Is that your standard conquest formation, or did you bring additional ships we haven't detected yet? I got what? A man with thick glasses spoke up next. Dr. Patel, astrophysics. I'm curious about your propulsion system. We observed some unusual gravitational signatures during your approach. Are you using a form of controlled space-time manipulation? The energy requirements must be enormous. That is classified military. Also, a younger woman added, your presence field technology is fascinating. We've been monitoring the electromagnetic and possibly psionic emissions since you landed. Is it biological, technological, or a hybrid system? We'd love to co-author a paper on it. Zalthor felt his confidence evaporating. This was not how conquest proceeded. Where was the fear? Where was the desperation? Why were they asking about energy requirements like this was an academic symposium? Secretary General Okonkwo cleared his throat. Perhaps we should address the, shall we say, proposal that Commander Zalthor presented. Does anyone have thoughts? An elderly man in a tweed jacket spoke. Ambassador Chen, representing the Asian Continental Alliance. Commander, we appreciate your directness, but we can't simply surrender Earth's sovereignty without proper discussion. We have 7 billion people with diverse governments, cultures, and opinions. Even if we wanted to accept your terms immediately, and we don't, it would require extensive consultation and probably several years of negotiations. Years? Zalthor's voice rose 3 octaves. You have 1 day. That seems unrealistic, Chen continued calmly. Tell me, how did you handle democratic processes on the other worlds you've conquered? Most of them must have had some form of representative government. They submitted or were destroyed, so you bypassed the democratic process entirely. That explains the efficiency, but raises serious ethical concerns. Zalthor activated his wrist communicator. A holographic display filled the room, showing the Carvothian fleet in perfect formation above Earth. Then it showed a recording from a previous conquest, a planet's capital city being vaporized by orbital bombardment. Buildings crumbling, the landscape burning, millions dying in seconds. The humans watched quietly. When the display ended, several of them made notes on their tablets. That's a war crime, General Martinez said matter-of-factly. Several war crimes, actually. Targeting civilian populations, disproportionate use of force, failure to distinguish between military and non-military targets. That's definitely getting reported to the International Criminal Court. Oh wait, this is an interplanetary situation now. We'll need to establish a galactic criminal court. Add that to the agenda. A war crime? Zalthor was breathing heavily now. I demonstrated the power of the Empire. You demonstrated that you're willing to commit genocide, Dr. Patel said quietly. That's not power, Commander. That's just murder with better technology. The coffee break incident, someone suggested a break. Zalthor found himself standing in a smaller room with comfortable couches and a machine that dispensed hot brown liquid that humans called coffee. Secretary General Okonkwo pressed a cup into his upper right hand. Try it, Okonkwo said. Cream and sugar? I do not require your... Just try it, Commander. You look stressed. Zalthor's anger had evolved into profound confusion. He took a cautious sip. The liquid was bitter, hot, and contained a stimulant that his biology immediately appreciated. Despite himself, he took another sip. Good, right? Okonkwo smiled. Coffee is one of humanity's greatest achievements. Some say it built modern civilization. Look, Commander, I understand you have a job to do. You've conquered hundreds of worlds. You have a process. But Earth is different. Every species says they are different. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. But consider this. You showed us a recording of planetary destruction to scare us. Humans have had the capability to destroy our own planet for over 80 years now. We've lived under the threat of nuclear annihilation, climate catastrophe, asteroid impacts, and artificial intelligence gone wrong. We've imagined every possible apocalypse and made movies about it. Your orbital bombardment? We've seen that scenario in at least 30 films. 2 of them won Academy Awards. Zalthor stared at him. You make entertainment about your own extinction? The meeting resumed. Zalthor attempted a different approach. He would demonstrate technical superiority so overwhelming that surrender would be the only logical choice. Our dreadnought, he announced, carries weapons capable of cracking a planet's crust. Our shields can withstand the output of a main sequence star. Our engines can cross a galaxy in weeks. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Resistance is mathematically impossible. The humans nodded thoughtfully. Then they started asking questions. What's your shield's refresh rate? General Martinez asked. How much antimatter do you carry for fuel? Dr. Patel wanted to know. What's the thermal dissipation system for your main weapon? Another scientist inquired. Can we see the schematics? Someone else added. Zalthor found himself answering. He didn't mean to. But the questions were so specific, so technically informed that he responded automatically. Yes, the shields refreshed every 0.3 seconds. Yes, they carried antimatter and magnetic containment. Yes, thermal dissipation was actually a significant engineering challenge. An hour later, he realized he'd been conducting a technical seminar rather than a conquest negotiation. The humans were taking notes, asking follow-up questions, and discussing potential improvements to Carvothian technology. "You know," Dr. Patel said, "your antimatter containment system sounds inefficient. We've been working on some theoretical improvements at CERN. If you adjusted the magnetic field geometry and added quantum stabilization, you could probably improve fuel efficiency by 15 to 20%. "That's classified military technology," Salthor protested weakly. Of course, but if you ever want to collaborate on research, we're interested. Imagine what we could accomplish together. Carvothian engineering experience and human innovative thinking. We could revolutionize galactic travel." The evening report that evening, Salthor stood on his flagship's command deck, preparing his report to the Eternal Throne. His second-in-command, Navigator Thex, stood nearby with 4 cups of coffee he'd requisitioned from the planet below. "Sir, what do we report?" Thex asked. Salthor stared at Earth spinning below. "In my 62 previous conquests, I have encountered warrior species who fought bravely before surrendering. I have encountered peaceful species who surrendered immediately to preserve life. I have encountered cunning species who attempted negotiation and trickery. But I have never ever encountered a species who responded to conquest with paperwork, coffee, and scientific collaboration proposals. They didn't seem afraid at all, sir. No, they seemed curious, and somehow that's more disturbing than fear." Salthor turned to his navigator. "They want to establish a galactic criminal court. They want to publish papers on our technology. One of them invited me to speak at Oxford University about cross-cultural military traditions." "What is an Oxford University?" "I believe it's an educational institution, sir." "They want to educate me? I came to conquer them." Salthor's 4 hands gestured wildly. "And this coffee beverage is dangerously addictive. I've consumed 7 cups. What do we do tomorrow, sir?" Salthor sighed, all 6 eyes closing briefly. "Tomorrow we try again. The Eternal Throne demands conquest. But tonight we study human psychological profiles and try to understand what went wrong. Also acquire more coffee, for strategic purposes." Below them, Earth continued spinning, its cities glowing in the darkness. Somewhere down there, Secretary General Okonkwo was probably preparing more documents, brewing more coffee, and planning how to turn an attempted conquest into a diplomatic opportunity. Salthor realized with growing unease that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or military might. It was their complete refusal to accept that things couldn't be negotiated, understood, or solved over refreshments and conversation. The conquest of Earth was not going according to plan. When fear tactics meet human nature, the demonstration of power dawn broke over Geneva, and Salthor was determined to regain control of the situation. He had spent the night reviewing every successful conquest in Carvothian history, consulting with the Imperial High Command, and consuming what humans called espresso, which was apparently coffee but more intense. He now understood why humans had conquered their own planet. They had beverages that made conquest seem reasonable at any hour. Today would be different. No more polite conversations. No more answering technical questions. Today the humans would see real power, and they would finally understand fear. The Carvothian fleet moved into low orbit, positioned directly above major population centers: New York, London, Beijing, Mumbai, São Paulo, Lagos, Sydney, Tokyo. Each city now had a warship hovering overhead, visible to millions. The psychological impact would be devastating. Salthor stood in the same plaza as yesterday, but this time he brought 50 warriors in full combat armor. Their weapons were activated, humming with contained energy. His presence field was amplified to maximum power, now boosted by 3 portable generators. Birds fell from the sky. Small animals fled in terror. Plants wilted slightly. Secretary General Okonkwo arrived with the same delegation as before, plus about 30 additional people carrying cameras, measurement devices, and one person with a large drone that buzzed around Salthor's head. "Good morning, Commander," Okonkwo called cheerfully. "Beautiful day for a demonstration of overwhelming force, isn't it? We've brought the International Press Corps, CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, and about 24 others. We figured if you're going to demonstrate your fleet's capabilities, we should document it properly. Is that okay? We can ask them to leave if you prefer privacy." Salthor's confidence wavered slightly. Want to film this?" "Well, yes. This is historic. First contact with an interstellar empire. Demonstration of advanced alien technology. This is going to get billions of views on social media. Oh, and we have live feeds set up to the United Nations General Assembly, major universities, and several military academies. Everyone's very excited. Excited? Zalthor's voice cracked slightly. Absolutely. Dr. Patel brought students from CERN. MIT sent a delegation. There are representatives from SpaceX, NASA, ESA, ISRO, and about 40 other space agencies. You're basically giving a masterclass in advanced military technology. We've even arranged translators for 63 languages. Zalthor looked at his second-in-command. Thex shrugged all four of his shoulders, equally confused. Very well, Zalthor said, trying to reassert authority. Today you will witness the true power of the Carvothian Empire. Today you will understand that resistance is meaningless. The humans applauded politely. Someone shouted, "We're ready when you are." The fleet maneuvers. Zalthor signaled his fleet. The warships began their demonstration. They moved through the atmosphere in perfect formation, breaking the sound barrier repeatedly. Sonic booms rolled across the continents. Then they activated their weapon systems simultaneously. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down from orbit, striking predetermined targets in uninhabited areas, deserts, ocean surfaces, mountain peaks. Each impact released energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The ground shook. Mushroom clouds rose. The display of destructive power was absolute. The humans watched intently. Cameras recorded everything. Scientists shouted measurements to each other. Someone was taking notes on a tablet. When the demonstration ended, there was a moment of silence. Then the question started. What's the energy yield per shot? A physicist called out. How do you prevent atmospheric ionization at those power levels? Another added. Is that a particle beam or directed energy weapon? A military analyst wanted to know. General Martinez walked over to Zalthor, tablet in hand. Commander, that was impressive. Really impressive. But I have some concerns about your tactical doctrine. You're concentrating your entire fleet over major population centers, which means you lack depth in your defensive formation. A coordinated attack from multiple vectors would leave you vulnerable. Also, your ships are maintaining geosynchronous orbit, making their positions predictable. Have you considered a more dynamic orbital pattern? Zalthor stared at her. Are you critiquing my military strategy? Professionally speaking, yes. Don't get me wrong, the firepower is excellent, but the execution could use some work. We actually did wargame scenarios based on your fleet composition last night. Would you like to see them? We have some suggestions that might improve your efficiency by 30 to 40%. You are gamed against my fleet? Well, yes. That's what militaries do. We study potential threats and develop responses. It's basic strategic planning. We also ran economic models on the cost of maintaining your fleet, analyzed your supply chain vulnerabilities, and did some preliminary work on potential alliance structures. Would you like a copy of the reports? They're only about 600 pages total. Zalthor felt something inside him break slightly. You wrote 600 pages in one night? Oh, that's just the preliminary analysis. The full assessment will take a few weeks. We're being thorough. The cultural exchange accident, what happened next, was entirely unexpected. A young human woman, probably in her early 20s, approached Zalthor during a break. She had bright purple hair and carried a sketchbook. Excuse me, Commander. I'm Maya, art student from NYU. Would you mind if I drew you? You have such interesting features. The way light reflects off your silver patterns is beautiful. Zalthor looked down at her. You wish to create art of me, if that's okay? I'm studying xenobiology aesthetics. We don't get many opportunities to draw actual aliens. Usually we just work from imagination and bad movies. Before Zalthor could respond, she was sketching. A crowd gathered. Other artists joined in. Soon there were a dozen humans sitting on the plaza, drawing and painting the Carvothian warriors. Some of the warriors, confused but flattered, began posing slightly. Your armor is amazing, one artist commented. The way it catches the light. Is it practical or ceremonial? Both, a Carvothian warrior answered before Zalthor could stop him. It provides full combat protection but also displays our rank and achievements. Fascinating. So it's functional fashion. We have similar concepts in human culture. Military dress uniforms, for example. Within an hour, the warriors were discussing armor design with fashion students, comparing notes on ceremonial traditions and explaining the significance of various decorations. One warrior was teaching a group of humans a traditional Carvothian war chant. It sounded remarkably similar to a football song, and soon both species were singing together. Zalthor watched this unfold with growing horror. This was not conquest. This was not intimidation. This was a cultural festival. The food incident, someone suggested lunch. Zalthor tried to refuse, but his warriors were already being led to food trucks that had appeared in the plaza. Food trucks at his conquest. A chef handed Zalthor something wrapped in paper. Tacos al pastor, she explained. Pork, pineapple, cilantro, onions, try it. You'll love it. Zalthor had eaten ration bars on 473 conquest missions. He'd never eaten local food. It seemed dangerous, possibly contaminated, definitely not dignified for a supreme commander. He took a bite. His 6 eyes widened simultaneously. The combination of flavors was extraordinary. Savory meat, sweet pineapple, sharp onions, fresh cilantro. His alien taste buds, designed for bland nutrition, suddenly understood why humans were so enthusiastic about food. It's good, right? The chef grinned. Want another one? These are on the house for our galactic visitors. Around him, his warriors were experiencing similar revelations. They tried pizza, sushi, curry, dumplings, and something called a croissant that made several of them weep with joy. A warrior who had fought in 16 campaigns was arguing passionately with a Korean grandmother about the proper way to make kimchi. Thex approached Zalthor, holding 3 tacos. Sir, we may have a problem. Just one problem? Zalthor asked bitterly. The crew is requesting permission to beam down for lunch. All 3,000 of them. They've heard about the tacos. The evening summit that night, Zalthor agreed to a proper summit meeting. Not because he wanted to, but because his warriors were refusing to leave Earth until they'd tried something called barbecue, and his fleet captains were requesting cultural exchange programs. The meeting was held at a neutral location, a conference center in Geneva that had hosted decades of international negotiations. The room was full. Human diplomats, military leaders, scientists, and representatives from nearly every nation on Earth. They'd even included ordinary citizens, teachers, farmers, artists, engineers. Secretary General Okonkwo stood at the podium. Commander Zalthor, we've had a productive 2 days. We've learned a lot about your empire, your technology, and your culture. You've learned a lot about humanity. I think it's time we discuss the future, not as conquerors and conquered, but as potential partners. The Eternal Throne will never accept. Tell me about the Eternal Throne. Dr. Patel interrupted gently. We've heard you mention it often. Is it a single ruler, a council, a system of government? How does decision-making work in your empire? Zalthor hesitated. Then, to his own surprise, he answered honestly. The throne is complicated. It's a council of 12 elder species, the original founders of the empire. They make decisions through consensus, which means nothing ever changes. The empire hasn't updated its conquest protocols in 3,000 years. 3,000 years. Ambassador Chen leaned forward. Commander, the universe changes. Societies evolve. What worked 3 millennia ago might not work today. Has anyone ever suggested reform? Many have suggested it. None have succeeded. The throne fears change. They believe the old ways maintain order. But do they maintain prosperity, happiness, peace? Okonkwo asked quietly. Commander, you've conquered 473 worlds. Are they better off as part of the empire? Are their people thriving? Or are they simply obeying? Zalthor was silent for a long moment. These were questions he'd never allowed himself to ask. Questions that weren't part of conquest protocols. I don't know, he admitted finally. The proposal General Martinez stood up. Commander, here's what I think is happening. You came to Earth expecting what you always get, fear, submission, conquest. But Earth is uniquely positioned in one important way. We've never encountered aliens before, which means we have no template for how we should respond to you. So we're responding the way we respond to everything, with curiosity, skepticism, bureaucracy, and food. Laughter rippled through the room. Even some of Zalthor's warriors chuckled. You've shown us your military power, Martinez continued. It's impressive. You could destroy our civilization. We acknowledge that reality. But here's what you haven't considered. We could also help you. Your empire is stagnant. You've been doing the same thing for 3,000 years. Meanwhile, humanity went from cave paintings to space stations in 12,000 years. We're innovative, adaptable, and honestly kind of chaotic. We might not have your technology, but we have something else, new ideas. Dr. Patel stood. What if, instead of conquest, we proposed collaboration? You share your technology, we share our innovations. You teach us about the galaxy, we teach you about adaptation and change. Instead of adding Earth as another conquered world, you could add us as the first voluntary member of a reformed empire. The throne would never approve, Zalthor said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then maybe it's time someone challenged the throne, Okonkwo said quietly. Commander, you've conquered 473 worlds. That's 473 civilizations that could benefit from reform. You're the supreme commander of the Imperial fleet. If anyone has the authority and experience to suggest change, it's you. You're asking me to commit treason? We're asking you to commit progress, Ambassador Chen corrected. There's a difference. The decision. Zalthor looked around the room, at the humans who should have been cowering in fear but instead were offering partnership, at his warriors who were enthusiastically sharing photos of tacos on their communication devices, at the endless parade of human contradiction, fragile but brave, divided but united, primitive but innovative. I need to think, he said finally. Of course, Okonkwo replied. Take all the time you need. In the meantime, we've arranged cultural exchange programs. We thought your crew might enjoy experiencing Earth while you make your decision. We have volunteers ready to show them our cities, our art, our music, our food. What do you say? Zalthor thought about the reports he would have to write, the explanations he would need to provide, the fact that he had spent 3 days on Earth and hadn't conquered anything except possibly a taco addiction. Then he thought about 3,000 years of unchanged protocols, 473 worlds living in submission rather than partnership, an empire that had stopped growing because it had stopped learning. Yes, he said quietly. Let us learn from each other. The room erupted in applause, humans and Carvothians alike celebrating something new. Not a conquest, not a surrender, but a possibility. The report that night, Zalthor sent his official report to the Eternal Throne. It was the most unusual report in Imperial history. To the Eternal Throne. Earth integration is proceeding differently than previous conquests. Initial intimidation. Protocols failed due to human psychological resilience and their peculiar response to existential threats. After extensive evaluation, I propose a new approach. Voluntary alliance with cultural and technological exchange. Recommend suspension of traditional conquest protocols in favor of diplomatic partnership. Also recommend immediate introduction of Earth beverage coffee to Imperial supply chains for strategic purposes. Full details to follow. Request guidance. Request more coffee. Commander Zalthor. He sent the report and waited. The response would take weeks to arrive. In the meantime, he had accepted an invitation to address the United Nations General Assembly, attend a concert, humans made music that could shake souls, and something called a cooking competition where he would be a judge. 3 days ago, he had arrived to conquer Earth. Now he was learning that there were different ways to connect civilizations. Messier ways, more complicated ways, ways that involved paperwork and coffee, and arguing about technical specifications and sharing tacos, ways that might actually work. As Zalthor looked out at Earth from